Hi everyone, welcome to Sacred Timings with Swati. I'm Swati Kameswar, and in this video, we are going to be talking about eclipses, May transits, and life after the eclipse tunnel. So let's get started. Quick recap before we dive into May. We had towards the end of April, on April 30th, we had the new moon solar eclipse in Taurus, which was conjunct Uranus. Then a few days later, we had Sun conjunct Uranus, also adding that flavor to the eclipse week. Then soon Pluto turned retrograde, and today is May 10th. Mercury has turned retrograde, and Jupiter enters Aries just a few hours later. So we can see that the Aries energy is building up during this eclipse tunnel. So today we're going to talk about the next eclipse, which is the lunar eclipse coming up on the 16th of May. And before we dive into the transits and all the themes for this month, let's quickly drop into our hearts and center and ground into our hearts. So I invite you to pause and calm the mind down, bring down all the thoughts into your heart space, and imagine this beautiful sun around your heart. And when I say heart, I really mean the center, the absolute center of your body. That connection to divine source energy, which is absolutely in the center of this area of your body. And notice if you can sense it. Connect with it every day. Let the sun inside there shine a light on it. And let it activate that connection more and more. With every breath, let this area of your body become brighter and stronger. And ask yourself, what is the framework that you would like to live your life through? We are in a deeply transformational passage, and this is a beautiful opportunity to get absolutely clear about the framework, the new framework going ahead. And as the sun is shining a light there, also ask yourself, what is it that you're ready to let go of? Who and what are you ready to forgive? What patterns you've learned the lessons, and now you're ready to let go of those patterns forever. So let the sun shine a light on all of these, and let this arise to the surface of your consciousness. And keep that in mind and heart as we go through this video. All right. Now you may open your eyes if you've closed them. So this is what we're going to cover today. We'll start with May transits. And there's a lot going on in May. That seems to be the norm these days. There's just some transit or the other. But the main thing we're going to focus on is the lunar eclipse, as well as practices for May and for going ahead. And I will also share with you some of my personal practices that have been very amplified in the recent months and how I am handling these very intense energies. So let's get started with the key transits for me. So as you can see, there's something happening on pretty much every day. Keep this list handy. I would say don't get too caught up with the dates. Just know that this is it's a transit. It's a period of time designed to create transformation in our lives for the better. So if we have that big picture, that big, if we are seeing it through this framework, that it's going to be a transformational time, and let me just get along, get on board with it, then that helps. But kind of focusing on every single day, I feel like that doesn't necessarily help. And all the methods that I share with you are meant to help you deal with the energy no matter what, right? Like just to get sort of immune to the energy and be in a state that no matter what is happening external, you're able to sail through it in a beautiful way. But I will just go through some of the key themes that are playing out in this month. So today, of course, Mercury turns retrograde at 4, almost 5 Gemini, and it'll turn direct on June 3rd. So we are entering this 3-week period of Mercury being retrograde. Now that happens 3 to 4 times a year. We know that there's nothing to be worried about. What Mercury does when it goes retrograde is that it puts a focus on our internal state, our reliance on left brain type communication, logic, analysis, all of that kind of stuff. That starts to get a little shaken, and it inspires us to think in different ways. It inspires us to review things. It inspires us to be very, very intentional with our communication. Impeccable communication is one of the practices for this month, so I'm going to be talking about that later in the slide. And one of the key things about Mercury turning retrograde in Gemini, and it'll enter Taurus on, let's see, on May 22nd, and then it turns direct on June 3rd at 26 Taurus. So it is spending time in Gemini as well as Taurus. But it's really about rewriting our story. And as cliched as that may sound, it comes 3 or 4 times a year, Mercury retrograde. So rewriting our story, rewriting our perception. In Gemini, it's so much about our perception, as well as Gemini is associated with duality, but it's really about moving out of duality, coming to that point where you realize that all of this is just an illusion. And so being ready to surrender the stories that keep you caught in that illusion is a very important part of this transit, as well as this transformational passage. So recognize, take every opportunity to see, to question, to ask yourself, where am I stuck here and how can I come out of it? And rewriting that story. Remember, you are a powerful, powerful creator. And we rewrite our stories through the mental realm, through our emotional realm. And Mercury being retrograde gives us that opportunity to do that. Then the other key theme is Jupiter enters Aries today. So it's going to be in Aries till October 27th. And then it'll finally come back into, on October 27th, 28th, it'll go back into Pisces, and then it'll come back into Aries on December 20th, all the way till May of next year. So this pattern follows Jupiter's journey back in 2010, 2011. If you feel like you can recollect what happened in your life at that time, although I feel like so much has happened since then, right? Sometimes we can always go back and look at transits when they happened in previously and see how they affected our life. But I would say that treat this like a brand new thing, like a brand new transit, because you are very different today than you were back in 2010. So even if it is activating the same area of your chart, which it will, of course, because it'll come back to that same point, it might be activating different aspects of it, and always invite in the highest essence. So Jupiter is a principle of expansion. And when it enters Aries, it's going to expand all things Aries. Now, typically what happens is that the shadow gets expanded first, because if we are not aware of the shadow, that will play out by default. So the shadow of Aries is so many different things: anger, emotions, immaturity, a focus on the self to the detriment of others, destruction, aggression. All those are shadow aspects of Aries. Now, the highest essence of this is that it amplifies the highest essence of Aries, which is protecting the innocent. That could be you as well. Having boundaries, strong boundaries, being that courageous pioneer, acting on instinct. What does your instinct say? And going, doing that, trailblazing a new path. So all these beautiful aspects of Aries, you want to call that out more and more into your life. The Aries theme is actually very strong in this month of May, because Mars will enter Aries on May 24th. And then it will conjunct Jupiter at 3 degrees of Aries on May 29th. So it is amplifying that energy of Aries. And Mars conjunct in Jupiter last, I think it was in 2020. The current cycle of Mars, which started, I believe it was the end of 2020, is emphasizing the sign of Aries. So this is an added emphasis on this sign. There is more amplification of Aries. So you want to watch out for all the shadow aspects. Do the work to clear the shadow aspects. Be more aware of how the shadow is expressing through you, and constantly keep coming back to that highest essence. Like continuing to do that inner work is key during this time. Then we have the lunar eclipse coming up on late May 15th, early May 16th. And a lot of transits are adding their flavor to the lunar eclipse, which I'll talk about shortly. We have the Sun conjunct North Node at 22 Taurus. That's a beautiful, beautiful energy to take advantage of. And a day before the eclipse, actually just a few hours before the eclipse, we have Sun square Saturn and Venus conjunct Chiron. So the eclipse period, especially because it's eclipse in full moon in Scorpio, that can have a lot of intensity. So we'll talk about how to deal with that. Then May 18th, Mars conjuncts Neptune at almost 25 Pisces. Now it's kind of activating that same degree where all this Neptune, Jupiter, Venus, Neptune conjunctions have been happening in Pisces. And I've talked about that at length. You can go back and look at the previous videos from me about those transits. But it's activating that part of the chart again. So just watch out for what is dissolving in your life. And what is the highest essence? What is being uncovered as things dissolve? So the dissolution is actually a good thing, I would say. Always a good thing, because it dissolves the ego, it dissolves what is false to us, it dissolves what is just ready to be washed away from our lives. And then it uncovers something beautiful underneath. So you want to watch out for what's coming up underneath that, what's coming up behind the dissolution. Okay, what else did I miss? I'm just looking at this list here. There's just so many transits. So that's the main theme for the coming month. Just a lot of change as usual, but also a lot of opportunity to be intentional about how we want to move through this. Okay, now let's talk about the full moon lunar eclipse. The moon is in Scorpio, sun is in Taurus at 25 degrees 18 minutes. We have Venus conjunct Chiron on the same day at around 14-15 degrees of Aries. Sun square Saturn in Aquarius, and Mercury is retrograde. So Venus conjunct Chiron, the wounds, the sensitivities, the triggers in our relationships, triggers around what is it that we really want, that may get amplified. Sun square Saturn is shining a spotlight on who's the true authority in your life. Is it something external or some patterns that are external to you, or is it really you? And Mercury retrograde, of course, I talked about the impeccable communication. So I want to speak about this transit from the perspective of the Scorpio energy, because it is a full moon in Scorpio. Now, full moons in Scorpio can always be intense. I wouldn't say always. It really depends on how much emotional clearing you've done and how you're able to handle the intensity. For some people, the intensity can be handled very easily, and for some people, it can just throw them off. But this is a lunar eclipse, and so that kind of amplifies the energy of that full moon. So it is just wise to go through this entire time with a lot of awareness and as much conscious awareness, being awake as much as you can as you go through this. So let's take a look at the Scorpio shadow, because as we go through this week and in the coming weeks, that is coming up to be released. Because the South Node is in Scorpio, and the South Node, when the eclipses happen, the South Node is involved in this particular eclipses happen on the nodal axis. So in this case, it's the South Node that is being highlighted, and the South Node is always something that we are learning from that pattern, and then we are leaving it behind so that we can move towards the North Node. Now, if you remember, in the previous slide, we talked about the Sun conjunct North Node just a couple of days before this. So there is that opportunity to permanently leave behind patterns not serving you. Scorpio is about death and rebirth and permanent transformation. And this is a really important thing to recognize, that you can leave behind stuff, patterns. This is why at the beginning of this video, we asked to see what is it that I'm ready to forgive? What patterns am I ready to let go of? Because you can put an end to them, compost them forever. So let's take a look at the Scorpio shadow, which is coming up to be released. You might see this expressing in yourself. You might see this expressing in others around you. You for sure will see this in the collective. Things like control, manipulation, fear. Fear is a huge thing, like our entire existence and how we operate in this reality often comes from a place of fear and false attachments. So watch out for these themes being amplified. Watch out for these, the old way of doing things that being amplified, actions coming from a place of fear or a place of missing out on something. Oftentimes we do so many things not because we want to do them, not because we have a desire to do them, but because we're afraid of something else. We're afraid of losing something. We're afraid that this will not work out and hence I must do this. So all these actions that come from a place of fear of missing out, of a lack of something, that is the old way of doing things. So pay attention to where you are putting in action, where your choices are driven without, there's no passion behind it, but it is coming from a place of fear. And recognize that this is a beautiful opportunity to let go of that. This fear is coming up to be released, and we want to do all that we can to clear that fear. Now, it is a process. If this is the first time you are hearing about this, or the first time you are doing work like this, it's not going to happen instantly. But the good thing is that every time you let go of a little bit of fear, every time you let go of something that is blocking you from taking a courageous action. Remember, Aries is being highlighted as well. And Aries is that bold, courageous pioneer trailblazing a new path. Every time you let go of the fear to trailblaze that new path for yourself, you are weakening that fear. And doing things from a place of fear is going to get really hard to sustain going forward because there's just so much light flooding the planet that all of these old patterns are just being busted up. And you might feel that change happening as a lot of anxiety in your body because what that light is telling at a cellular level, the light is telling your body to do something differently. But we are holding on to this fear and we are holding on to this old pattern of doing from that fear. That fear is what motivates us. And so when that light, which is oftentimes is unconscious, we may not be able to see the light, but we can feel that there is some change happening in the body. And it can bring up anxiety because we don't know what to do. And I'll talk about what to do when that happens in a few slides later. But the first step here is to start the process of clearing the fear. Really recognize where you are acting from a place of fear in your life. And you might find that there are many, many, many places. I know this was true for me. When I went through Pluto transits for 6 years, and Pluto is the same energy as Scorpio, which is kind of going deep into the shadows and digging out all this gunk that is blocking us. There were a lot of fear patterns that I went through, and I released them. So now it's not that I'm not afraid of anything, but definitely the fear level in my life has fallen off to a great degree. So you want to ask yourself every time, notice when you're doing things from a place of fear. What is the deeper emotion behind this action? What is the real motivation behind this action? Do you really want to do it? What are you hoping to get from it? Or is it coming from a place of fear? And then keep diving deep, and you can do exercises like journaling exercises to dive into the deep, just writing, stream of consciousness writing. You can tapping is a great way. As you feel the fear, as you notice that I'm doing this out of a place of fear, start to tap and ask yourself, what is underneath? What am I afraid of losing? What am I afraid will happen if I don't do this? So recognize that this entire month of May, it's beautiful, beautiful opportunity to work with the energy of fear and start to loosen its hold in our life. Okay, now let's talk about Scorpio essence. And that's what we want to do. We want to invite the essence in. And honestly, Scorpio is such a beautiful energy. The highest essence of Scorpio is when we are in touch with genuine life force energy, like we feel alive. We're not walking around feeling dead and just exhausted and tired all the time. And physically, we may feel that, but then mentally, emotionally, spiritually, we just feel so alive. and we are in touch with this genuine passion in our life. It's a creative life force energy that is not clouded by low vibrations of fear, control, lack, manipulation, all of those shadows. It's a very pure and extremely strong energy that I strongly sense comes directly from source. It animates you. You may notice people who have Scorpio strong in their chart. They just are so there's an intensity to that energy. That one of the highest sense aspects of Scorpio is also the surrender to the higher wisdom, and surrender that comes from a place of true empowerment. Um, Oftentimes when we think of surrender, we think, the conventional view may be that it's about letting go, it's about giving in, giving up or giving in, and that is just not true surrender at all. When we surrender without being empowered, we risk bypassing the true emotions underneath that. We risk bypassing looking at the true picture, and oftentimes it can be so you want to watch out for this. I'm not saying this is true for everybody, but you want to watch out for this because this energy will be so heightened in the coming weeks. Notice if your surrender is coming from a place of being tired and just wanting to give controls to somebody else, to some external authority, to some external structure. And remember, we have Sun square Saturn activating this eclipse as well. So this is about true empowerment, true inner authority. The authority is you. The authority is the source energy within you. The authority is the genuine connection to divine source energy that you have. And when you have a true empowerment, then surrendering to the higher wisdom becomes a way of life. Like you are able to go with the flow so easily because you're not trying to control. And that control is a shadow of Scorpio because it is afraid. Oftentimes a control, manipulation patterns in Scorpio come from that place of fear. So a lot of the shadow of Scorpio comes from that place, from that pattern of fear which is lying deep underneath. That's the case even with, externally when you see people who are power hungry, who really want control, or even if it's not externally, even if it's in your own life. If you're trying to control the outcome of something, it is likely that there's a fear pattern running underneath. There's a fear program running underneath, and you want to be doing the work to clear that. Now, when you have this true surrender, empowered surrender, you actually come to this place of absolute trust in yourself as a creator because you know that creative energy is flowing through you. You are in touch with that passion, that aliveness. You're in touch with that creator source. And so you're able to trust that you will be able to create, like you'll be able to shape the reality the way you need to, and not coming from a place of control, of fear that you'll lose out on something, but just that higher trust in the higher wisdom. Because there's a deep recognition of your life force. There's a deep recognition of how your life force energy creates your life. And there's a deep level of responsibility to using it properly. Like you are able to use that properly. So invite all these aspects in as you move through this tunnel. Now, typically when one is able to experience the highest essence of Scorpio, it's because they have done all that inner work of diving deep into the dark, meeting the shadow, meeting the fear, clearing it out, going into very uncomfortable emotions because Scorpio is, after all, it's a water sign. And it represents the intensity of all the levels of water, like from frozen all the way to raging, boiling hot. So our emotions are like that. They can span this range. And one of the reasons, one of the highest essences of Scorpio is the ability to navigate all those emotions, that intensity of the emotions, and master the response to it. So we are not getting all thrown off by the emotions, but we are able to master the response to the emotions and come from that place of centeredness to all of it. So we are meeting all those emotions with this centeredness, deep stillness. And when one is able to do that, when one has done the inner work of going into the intensity and then coming out of it. You're able to travel in the dark and you're able to help other people do the same thing. So that is the other gift of this transit. If you have Scorpio in your chart, and even if you don't have Scorpio, you can assimilate these higher qualities within yourself. But this is an opportunity to uplevel that Scorpio essence, um, doing your own inner work so that you can help others navigate those dark times. Now, one thing you may want to do, a journaling question I've added here, is asking yourself, what is making me feel alive at this point in my life? That's super, super important. We really want to be in touch with that feeling of aliveness. And it is likely that there is something new showing up in your awareness that is going to make you feel alive. So you want to be looking out for that. That is why I always say invite the highest essence of the transit, because every time you invite the higher essence, it takes you to another level and another level and another level of that energy. And remember, with the Pisces, Neptune transits we've had this year, the old is dissolving. So it's uncovering this new reality. And you want to have your perception, again, going back to that Mercury retrograde, changing your perception, writing a new story for your life. Believe that you can feel alive. Believe that you can do the things that make you feel alive. And call that out. Call that out. We are dreaming this reality. We are dreaming this vision into being. So notice what shows up in your awareness as we go through this eclipse tunnel. Things will start to fall away that are just not in your highest good anymore. So notice what's falling away. Don't give it too much attention. With gratitude, let it go. And then notice what is the new that is presenting, because that new is waiting to be amplified. Okay. All right, so here I just have the slide from last time's video on the 5-step strategy. I won't really go through it in detail, but the key thing is know your chart, know what is being activated in your chart at this time, be aware of that doorway that's taking you into the new, manage your energy. This is absolutely key. Find a way to release those emotions. Don't be attached. Releasing attachments here is absolutely key. Don't be attached to the emotions. Just do the clearing, move on. So clear, then direct your energy. Clear the energy and direct your energy. So this is the kind of the blueprint you follow. Be very careful of what you're taking in so that you can manage your energy. Engage in this eclipse consciously. So spend some time in solitude, get out into nature, really be in the charge of Gaia. So on as close to the surface of Gaia as you can. And then finally, minimize distractions, simplify your life, come to it with as much compassion as you can, because this is quite a highly charged emotional time for the collective. Okay, so one of the key practices I wanted to talk about is impeccable communication. And if you remember last week, we talked about impeccable creation. That's the main thing about this transit, this tunnel, eclipse tunnel, is the old way that we are creating our life is dissolving. And we really want to come from a place of intention, passion, aliveness, all of that. So recognize that what's happening right now with all these transits, and it's been happening for many years, is that our perception is getting purified. Like the veils are lifting with all these sun activity, solar flares, all of that. The magnetosphere of the Earth is dissolving, and that magnetosphere was what was responsible for putting the veils up, for keeping that, for having that separation between the cosmic energy and Earth and the inhabitants on Earth. So as that thins down more and more, our perception gets purified because there is nothing blocking it anymore. So things are very clear. All the gunk we have created, as well as all the good, is completely clear. And that means our perception is getting purified. The key thing to remember, though, is that we are creating out of habit. So this is why impeccable creation is such an important theme. We are creating out of habit, and we want to start to notice where we are doing that and change it, change our perception, because this incoming light that's flooding the planet is really intensifying our creator ability. We know that we are creators. We know we are creating our reality, but we may not have a sense of how we are doing that. So, what we might be doing is creating unconsciously. And the more intense the light becomes, the more we are creating unconsciously, the faster it gets created. So, during this time, especially, Mercury retrograde and all of that, we want to be very careful about the language that we are using. So language, we know that sound shapes matter, and language is a form of sound. And that actually goes and shapes the matter of our life. So notice if you're expressing from the wound, because that is an old way of creating. If you're expressing from the wound, this concept of expressing from the wound I have talked about in many of the videos. You can go back and watch the videos from previous months. You want to be expressing from the place of your highest self and actually perceiving life from there. That's what these transits are inviting us to do. Start to perceive life from a different lens and express from your highest self, because then you start to create your life in a different way. Remember, language is just sound, it's moving the energy to create matter. And when we express from the wound over and over again, and we're not able to let go of the triggers and the emotions around it, if we haven't done emotional clearing or we don't do it when that gets triggered, then you create your life in the same way. And then you get stuck in this karmic pattern. So, one of the practices for the month of May that I'm recommending is watching every word that you think and you say. Notice what kind of words you're using and what do these words indicate. These words will give you clues to what you believe and big clues to what you are creating in your life. And if you don't like it, change it right away. Remember, you're a powerful creator and your creator abilities are intensifying. Even if you're not aware of it, even if you're unconscious of it, they are actually intensifying. That means you may be inadvertently creating what you don't want through the choice of the words that you think and say. So watch every word, change the words to what you would like instead of what you don't, because words have a vibration and they are meant to create something. So they will do that, and we want to be conscious of it. The next thing we want to watch out for is communication in relationships. Remember, with this eclipse, we have Venus conjunct Chiron and Mercury retrograde. So if we are expressing from the wound in our relationships, and if the opposite person is also expressing from the wound, we are going to be stuck in that wound. And we're going to be stuck in the discomfort and all the ickiness and all the intense emotions of the wound. So you want to disengage from that pattern as much as you can, as quickly as you can, as often as you can. Watch for patterns like judgment or criticism that are coming from you. And recognize that we can't change other people, but you can change yourself, and that will shift the energy because you break the pattern. When one person changes the way they respond to something, that pattern is broken. Not saying it's easy, but I frankly don't know any other way of breaking patterns than just changing your own energy, changing your own self. Practice the art of saying nothing and thinking nothing, staying neutral with compassion when you get triggered. Whether you're getting triggered in a relationship, in a conversation with someone, or whether you're getting triggered by something happening in the external. Start practicing the art of just being neutral. No comment, no opinion about it. Just let it be. And if you are having a conversation with someone and they are getting triggered, when you say nothing and you think nothing also, because remember, even the thoughts we have, they have energy and they go out into this, into the ether, and they go out into the universe, and then the universe responds back to us with that same matching pattern. When you stay neutral, if you're having a conversation with someone and you're able to stay neutral when they get triggered, you give them the gift of having their experience without judgment. And that's a beautiful gift to give to anyone, no matter what you feel about them. So the key thing here is to disengage. Disengage your energy from that pattern. Don't get entangled in it as much as you can. Now, I'm not saying that this is the remedy for all situations. Some situations may call for you to speak up for yourself and to hold those boundaries. But a lot of the times you might recognize that there are patterns that just don't require anything, any response. There's immense power in neutrality, and that can change your reality. And it starts to neutralize the emotional triggers of others as well if you can stay in genuine neutrality. This is something that is really working for me. It has been working for me. When I put it into practice, it does. So that's why I'm sharing it with you. Okay, the next practice I want to talk about is spiritual maturity. So, I was thinking about this this concept of being awake. Like, when you consider somebody awake, and there might be many definitions of it. I just wanted to share with you my perspective. Now, you may agree with it, you may not. Take what resonates for you, leave the rest. But I recognized, when I woke up many years ago, this was around the time when Pluto was coming onto my Mercury, but it was an intense moment of realization that I was creating my own reality. And there was a sudden awareness that, oh my God, this thing that I don't like, that I'm constantly thinking about, I'm actually creating it by constantly thinking about it. So there was this true realization that I'm creating my own reality. There's awareness of the creative state, the creator state within you. And to be very honest, it was extremely uncomfortable for me. It was disconcerting. There was a lot of emotions. I was pissed off at myself. There was shock that, the sudden realization created a sense of shock. And if I remember correctly, I was having some Uranus transit too. So that is the key with, Uranus transits. They will just shift your perception. They'll break something in your awareness to give you that, like a lightning bolt kind of an awareness. There was disbelief that, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. I thought I was mature and so on. And yet, I had no idea this was happening, blah, blah. And finally, there's this realization that there is nobody to blame. It was just me all along creating this thing. Now, this happens with everyone. Everybody is creating their own reality in many ways. Now, there might be some things that seem like they're out of your control, but most of the times it's our inner creator state. We are choosing to use our energy in a certain way that creates that reality, and oftentimes we are not aware of it. So when we become aware of it, that is when I consider one wakes up. Now, what's happening, the big picture of these transits is that all creation is getting purified. It's not just the earth, it's not just Gaia that is raising in vibration, it's the entire solar system, through the sun, the galaxy, the universe, everything is getting purified because Source itself has sent a new, Source itself is creating a new creation. All of creation is getting purified. And it gets purified through these transits, the energy that comes in through the sun at all these different key points, the sun, solar flares, and all of that stuff. I'm not going to go into all of that right now. But to put it in a very brief way, everything is getting purified. That means managing your energy in every moment is key. When you recognize that you are the creator, you have all the creator abilities intact within you, and you are already creating your life, there is a sense of wanting to be responsible for that creation. And how do we create? It's our mental energy, our emotional energy, it's our physical energy that goes and creates. So it's not just one thing that is creating a reality. It's your thoughts that go out into the world. It's your emotions, what you are projecting out, consciously or unconsciously. And finally, it's what you have in your space, the actions, the choices, the decisions that you make on a moment by moment basis that are creating your reality. So it's important during this time to constantly watch the thoughts and the words that you use, because that is part of creating a reality. We talked about impeccable communication in the previous slide. It's important to continue to do that. It's important to continue to do the emotional clearing, because our karmic patterns lie in the emotions. So doing the emotional clearing is absolutely key to clearing karmic patterns and to clearing the karma, so that those patterns are not residing in the cellular structure of your body. And this new light that's coming in has a place to land. Because when there are these old emotional patterns stuck in the body, It's a memory of a past event. Now, it could be a past event in this life, it could be a past event from a previous lifetime. You may not remember the actual event. In fact, most of us don't. But the energy signatures is still residing. That is why when a transit happens and it triggers that pattern, you start to feel the discomfort, and oftentimes the discomfort will feel way more amplified than it really is. So by that I mean that you might feel like, why am I getting so triggered? You might get triggered out of proportion to what that event actually is. But this is why, because we're carrying all these karmic patterns in our emotions. So to clear the karma, you have to come to a place of neutrality about those emotions in regards to those emotions and triggers. That means you have to come to a place where you don't get triggered by that, and that's when you know that you've cleared it. That's why I have been stressing so much over the last many months on emotional clearing. That is absolutely key if we want to come to a place of permanent peace. And it is possible. Of course, it is possible. There are so many people who are already doing, they're already in that state. So, managing your energy, your mental energy, your emotional energy is key. Then the physical clearing is also important. Really losing attachments, releasing attachments to what you have in your space, and creating your life through your actions in a different way. Your body as well, because your body is the vehicle through which we awaken in this lifetime. And the body is what is transforming at a very deep cellular level through this light. And the light that's coming in is activating the DNA within our body to express our higher and higher self. Now, if we have all these old mental and emotional patterns that are not serving us, that are tied to karmic stuff, then that DNA cannot activate. There's no space. The higher DNA, you may have heard of the 12-strand DNA. Those higher etheric structures cannot activate when there is so much density in the body. That is why the clearing is key. And this is part of the spiritual maturity topic concept that I'm talking about. We are really being invited to step into spiritual maturity as we go ahead and recognize to really own that creator state. Recognize that you're creating your reality and starting to create with intention, with love, with the highest interest of all concerned in mind. So some of the many steps that go into that feed into this concept are impeccable thoughts and words, clear emotions that can hold peace and love for long periods of time. And you'll find that the more emotional clearing you do, the more you can hold stillness, peace, and even love. And the more you don't get triggered by, the less you get triggered by the external stuff. And then that's the place, that neutral place is what changes everything else around you. And then you start to be that agent of change without even having to do anything. And that is actually one of the key things about this passage is more being and less doing is really key. So spiritual maturity includes selflessness, service for the unified good, empowered actions, no blame. There won't be any place for blaming anyone, because when you really own your creator abilities, you realize that, oh, I changed myself and I changed the world. One of the aspects of spiritual maturity is really honoring and acknowledging the change you're going through. We are actually all going through such deep change, whether you are conscious of it or not. Be willing to take the time to immerse yourself in nature to receive these scopes. That means be offline as much as you can. If we are attached to our devices, that really scrambles with our ability to integrate this new light. So this time of new self coming in, because as the light activates more and more of your cellular structures, what's really happening is that you are starting to become more you. So this new self starts to get uncovered. Now, it's not necessarily comfortable till we give ourselves that privacy, silence, solitude, and rest to integrate the new energies. That is why it is so key to disengage from the external world and to let yourself integrate this as seamlessly as possible, to support yourself. Because when you do that, you are starting to meet your new self with deep love. Another thing about spiritual maturity is acknowledging your creative abilities, recognizing that they're actually getting amplified with every day that goes by. your creative abilities are getting amplified. So you want to use it very wisely, create wisely. Remember, you have free will choice, so you are free to create what you want. But be sure you actually want it. That means there is that taking responsibility of what am I thinking? What am I feeling? What are my actions on a moment by moment basis till it becomes a way of life. Spiritual maturity also includes doing things differently when old problems show up. Like I said earlier about, the impeccable communication in relationships. When you disengage, you break the pattern. So break the old pattern, do something new in how you handle a specific problem. And finally, trust your heart. That connection we have to our source is deep inside our own body. Connect to that place often. Pause often. When you feel something shifting, when you feel something doesn't feel right, it could be, there are two things to this, two aspects of this. One is that something, you're doing your usual stuff, you're going about your day doing your usual stuff, and then something doesn't feel right. Oftentimes we will just force ourselves to do it, but you want to pause there, because when it doesn't feel right, there's a chance that your new self is trying to tell you something. So you want to pause there. Don't force yourself to do it, because that is just going to recreate the old pattern, the old day again and again. But ask yourself, how can I do something differently? Maybe go outside, take a breath of fresh air. Go put your feet on the ground, on the earth. Connect to the earth. And then come back and resume what you're doing. But break the pattern and allow something new to be shown to you in that moment. So pause often when that happens. And you might also feel this, oftentimes, I will just stop during the day and I'm just feeling blank. Like that's happening more and more. And that's when I know that something new is trying to come into my awareness. That's when you stop, you pause, drop into your heart, do that exercise of the sun shining on the heart and that heart, the center of the heart expanding, and invite that new awareness in. So being very intentional with how you're creating your life, do less, but do it with absolute engagement and presence. So this is more about, being that presence, not doing, not getting into this old habit of doing out of fear. And that's the highest essence of Taurus. We had the new moon solar eclipse in Taurus a couple of weeks back. We had the sun conjunct the North Node in Taurus. So this is inviting that higher essence of Taurus, which is about really enjoying this beautiful life, being that presence, less doing, but more enjoying. Okay. So that is it about spiritual maturity. Let's talk about personal practices, and let me quickly take a drink of water before I continue. So I just want to share with you what's been going on with me for the last couple of months. I know I haven't posted a video every week like I used to, and there's a reason for that. But I'm being very much drawn into the natural world. So I'm needing large amounts of quiet time. I'm feeling a lot of peace and stillness within, and I'm needing a lot of quiet time to keep feeling that. And it's not forced, it's just something I just want to stay in nature, quietly doing nothing. I've been intentionally connecting with Gaia, with the elements. I love working with the elements, and particularly birds and plants are coming so much into my awareness. I mean, I've always loved nature, but this is connecting with them in a new way. And I've started a nature journal, which is such a simple but beautiful practice, nature journaling, and that's one of the ways I'm connecting with them deeply. And this is a picture of a gardenia from my garden, and my garden is filled with roses and gardenias right now. So I'm really just settling into nature more and more. So like I said, nature is one of the ways that we integrate. Being in nature is one of the ways that you can integrate this intense energy. Creativity and sound is another, are a couple of things that have really amplified in my practice. I've been painting a lot using the concept of intentional creativity. You'll hear me talking about that more and more in coming months. I was actually very focused on completing my sound healing certification journey with Dominique and Trina Joy Lucas. That I'm super excited about that. So again, a lot of time spent with creativity and sound. And as regards to my future work, I've been sensing so strongly that I must do something differently. I must create differently. I'm losing interest in this day by day reporting of transits because I'm feeling like the energy is there all the time. So trying to analyze every day doesn't work. I'm needing many pauses myself, so I'm not able to create in the same way that I used to. Communication is different. Like I don't feel like talking at all. That's another reason why I've not, made a video every week. I just feel like talking uses a lot of energy these days, and I'm needing that silence deeply. And I don't want to be on the computer unless absolutely necessary. And there are many things I need to use the computer for. So, for whatever is essential, I do that, like my job and so on. But everything else seems like I need to be away from it. A lot of ups and downs in energy. And I'm sharing all these things with you because you might be going through the same thing. I just wanted to give you a sense of how I'm handling it. So I'm having these ups and downs in energy where I need a lot of time for rest and integration. So I'm just trying to be very clear with my intentions. I rest when it's needed, and then I take advantage of the ups to implement what I plan to. So hopefully this gives you a window into how you can work with these intense energies. And another thing that I've been working on behind the scenes is the missing link. So I'm part of this beautiful group of 9 soul wisdom leaders that's leading the program called the Missing Link, which starts next week on Monday. And basically, what it is a mini business school designed to help entrepreneurs create a soul aligned, thriving business ecosystem. So each one of us, 9 soul wisdom leaders, we have a different module. Mine is on awareness of different layers of awareness. And in that, I'm talking about transits, I'm talking about impeccable communication and how impeccable creation and how to create a business that is honoring all parts of you. So if you are a soulpreneur, an entrepreneur who is doing your soul aligned work, you're frustrated with the old paradigm, there's burnout, doing too much, doing all the time, and it seems unsustainable, and you want to move into a flow of ease and prosperity and doing more of what you love, doing more of your passion, then I invite you to check out this program. The links are mentioned here. And if you feel like you want to talk to somebody to get more information, feel free to reach out to me for a call, a complimentary call. We can discuss if the program is right for you. All right, that brings us to the end of this video. Then that's it for this month. I'm wishing you a beautiful, empowering May. We are pros at handling this energy. We know how to go through it. So I'm wishing you the very best going forward. And I just also wanted to share that sacred timings will come to a pause. It's on pause for the next couple of months. I have a lot of personal commitments, and also for the reasons I just mentioned, from my need to take it a bit slower. You'll hear from me. I'll continue to update on Instagram and Facebook as well as my newsletter. So surely, you can connect with me on those platforms to continue to receive astro inspiration and uplifting content. And as usual, I look forward to hearing from you. You can email me. You can share in the comments what it is that's resonating for you and what it is that you're going through. And blessings to you for a beautiful journey ahead. Thank you. Bye.